Unit 2, Lesson 6, Living Conditions. Unit 2, Lesson 6, Vocabulary. Because of the Industrial Revolution, we saw a huge migration of people from rural areas to city areas. Many moved from these rural areas because technology on the farms reduced the number of laborers needed. And some were escaping political oppression, but mainly people were trying to find more stable, better paying jobs with some type of benefits. And they could find those in greater number in the cities. So living conditions and working conditions go hand in hand during the Industrial Revolution. This helps us understand why people settled in cities. Cities were often the cheapest places to live, tenement buildings being the cheapest among them. Those were like modern day apartments. As factories offered many jobs to unskilled laborers, especially recent immigrants, even though they paid lower wages, factory towns became a major place for people to live in. The growth of cities is a process known as urbanization. Since factories were located near urban areas, these businesses attracted immigrants and people moving from the rural areas who were looking for employment. When cities grew at a rapid rate as a result of all the influx of immigrants and people looking for jobs, this is that process called urbanization. This leads to a process called urbanization. European cities go through a period of urbanization because of this factory system. It caused living conditions to be terrible. Sickness was widespread, like cholera. The average worker was working 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. There were many dangerous industries and coal mines. But specifically, urbanization was the process of many people moving to small urban city center areas, and they were too many people for the types of services that that city could provide at the given time. Take urbanization and how it happened in Scotland, a country with a population of more than 3 million people. Well, the urban city center of Glasgow saw its population grow to over a million. Glasgow was the coal mining capital of the world and the manufacturing and heavy industry capital of the world, with numerous shipbuilding and steel plants and cotton mills located throughout the city. Glasgow became a major population hub, and as such, the urbanization sprawl throughout the city. Other major cities of industrialization and urbanization with huge populations, like London, who had a population of over 2.8 million people in 1860, or Liverpool, with a population of nearly half a million. Manchester and Birmingham and Leeds all had populations ranging between 200,000 and 330,000 in 1860. So all these major cities are a result of urbanization, which was the growth of cities as people move into them. This occurred as people searched for jobs in the factories since they could no longer work on farms or become profitable on farming. So we need to look at how housing was inside these urban city centers, inside the cities. It was usually built very cheaply, multiple stories, no running water, often no toilets. There was usually a sewer line down the middle of the street where people would throw their waste. Trash was thrown out into the street. And most of the housing buildings, most of the housing rooms were extremely crowded. 5+ people living in one room was not uncommon. Most lived in cities in extremely crowded housing, like you see in the picture before you. This is an example of a tenement, a typical Glasgow tenement during the 1890 to 1910 period in New York. You can see that this isn't exactly big, and though there are kitchens in each of these apartments, individual apartments, there is not an individual bathroom as we talked about last week during our immigration section. One bathroom would be shared per floor for all of the tenants. This is an example of a tenement room with a young child hunched over in the center of the picture. This is an example of a tenement restroom or toilet in a tenement building. Because of conditions like this, diseases were common in the cities. The lack of sewage systems led to regular epidemics or outbreaks of diseases like cholera, which killed tens of thousands of citizens yearly. Not everyone lived in miserable conditions, same as it is here now. You had the middle and upper classes, which often lived in fancier homes, fancier apartments, larger property shares of the city. And it's important to note that middle class because they become a very large and important part of society going forward. Muckrakers was a term used for a group of journalists who exposed the political, economic, and social hardships caused by big businesses. Some notable muckrakers were Ida Tarbell, Upton Sinclair, Jacob Riis, and Lewis Hine. They exposed the truth about the living and working conditions for immigrants and working class. Jacob Riis is a prominent example of a muckraker. He was an immigrant from Denmark who became a police reporter and often worked in the slums of these industrialized cities. He was also a photographer who documented the lives of the poor living in tenement buildings. His most famous work, How the Other Half Lives, is shown and chronicled on the next few slides. Photo from Jacob Riis of a tenement building in New York. Another photo from Jacob Riis and How the Other Half Lives, taken outside Philadelphia. And a photo of a tenement schoolhouse with 35 children of mixed ethnicities, immigrants and native born alike, learning with their teacher in a room no bigger than a modern closet. Photo of an internal courtyard of a tenement building, New York, New York. Upton Sinclair, American author, novelist, wrote The Jungle in 1906. It chronicled the harsh conditions and exploited workers common during the Industrial Revolution, and this helped begin the reform movement. during the Industrial Revolution. Upton Sinclair, a prominent example of a muckraker.